Okay, so you want to own a Coca-Cola bottling franchise. Picture it for a second. You walk into any supermarket, any gas station, any roadside diner, in any of the 200 countries where this drink is sold, and that red can is always there, waiting for you. You hand over $2 for a cold can of Coke, you crack it open, and somewhere in the back of your head you think the exact same thing everyone thinks. Whoever makes this stuff must be printing money. A perfect product. A secret formula. A money machine that quietly spans the entire planet. And you are right about one part. Somebody is absolutely printing money. It is just almost certainly not who you think it is. Because here is the thing nobody tells you when you pop the tab on that can. The Coca-Cola Company, the roughly $350 billion giant headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, almost certainly did not make the drink in your hand. They did not blow the plastic for that bottle. They did not pour the liquid into it. And they absolutely did not drive the truck that hauled it to that gas station cooler. The real money is not in bottling water. It is not even in manufacturing the physical product you are drinking. The real money is sitting quietly on a balance sheet in Atlanta, and by the end of this, you are going to understand exactly how it gets there. Real quick before we crack open that balance sheet, if you like breakdowns that follow the actual money instead of the marketing, subscribe, because this is the whole channel. And do me a favor and drop a comment with the last brand you bought on autopilot, without thinking about it once, because I promise it runs on a trick almost identical to this one. All right, let us follow the money, not the brand. The balance sheet. When Coca-Cola reports to its investors, the money arrives from two very different places. The first bucket is called concentrate operations. That is the business of selling the syrup, the flavored cola base, to other companies. This bucket is tiny in volume and absolutely enormous in profit. The second bucket is called finished product operations. Those are the bottling plants Coca-Cola happens to own itself. High revenue, painfully thin margins. To understand how the machine actually works, we are going to follow the money, starting with one single bottle of Coke and the factory that made it. Because most people quietly assume the $2 they pay goes to Coca-Cola to manufacture a beverage. The truth is a lot stranger than that. You are mostly paying a local logistics company you have never heard of. And all Coca-Cola ever sold that company was a plastic bag full of dark syrup and permission to use the logo. Let us start with the barrier to entry, because it tells you everything you need to know. You cannot just wake up one morning and buy a Coca-Cola franchise. This is not McDonald's. With McDonald's, roughly $2 million and a decent credit history can get you a restaurant with your name on the lease. Coca-Cola simply does not work like that. The bottling partners are not small business owners chasing a dream. They are regional monopolies worth billions of dollars, with names most people have never heard, like Coca-Cola, Euro-Pacific Partners, and Coca-Cola Consolidated. These are industrial giants in their own right. To join that club, you do not need $2 million. You need hundreds of millions of dollars in capital. You need enormous water treatment plants. You need thousands of trucks. You need a sprawling logistics network built to absorb shattered bottles, drivers who show up late, and the price of diesel jumping overnight. It is heavy, expensive, physical, exhausting work, and it never stops. And here is the part that matters most. That heaviness is not an accident. It is not an unfortunate side effect of the business. It is a feature of the model. Coca-Cola deliberately designed the rules of the game so that somebody else has to do the backbreaking lifting, while Atlanta keeps the light, clean, high-margin part for itself. So let us zoom all the way in. Let us take that one single can and break it down to the penny. There is a simple way to do this, and once you see it, you genuinely cannot unsee it. First, the assumption. You would assume that most of your $2 goes to the liquid inside and the factory that made it. That feels obvious. It feels fair. It is completely wrong. Now the real numbers. Look at what is physically in your hand. Purified water. A little plastic film. A polyethylene bottle or an aluminum can. A cap. A printed label. Add every single one of those physical things together, everything you are actually holding, and the total cost lands somewhere around 15 to 20 cents. That is it. The stuff itself is nearly free. So where does the other $1.80 disappear to? Follow it, step by step. The supermarket or the retailer grabs a huge cut right off the top, often 30 to 40%, just for the privilege of putting that drink on the shelf at eye level where you will actually see it. The next enormous chunk flows straight to the bottler, the local partner. And that money is not profit for them. It pays for diesel. It pays for the depreciation on the truck fleet. It pays for the electricity running the bottling line and the wages of the drivers. Moving millions of gallons of cold, heavy liquid across an entire country turns out to be brutally, relentlessly expensive. But here is the twist. The Coca-Cola company in Atlanta pays for absolutely none of that. Not a single cent. They do not buy the plastic. They do not buy the diesel. They do not maintain one truck. All they do is sell that concentrated bag of syrup at a markup so wide it almost does not look real. You are not paying Coca-Cola for a drink. You are paying them for the idea of a drink while a local partner does every ounce of the heavy lifting. And once you understand that, you start noticing something strange at the register. Walk into a supermarket and a 2-liter bottle of Coke is cheap. Almost suspiciously cheap. Now walk into a gas station and grab a single ice-cold 500-milliliter bottle out of the cooler, and you pay nearly double the price per ounce. Same syrup. Same company. So what actually changed? The temperature. Cold is not a temperature. Cold is a pricing strategy. It is selling you the fact that you do not have to wait. Now, how did this whole lopsided arrangement even come into existence? For that, we have to travel back to the year 1899. Two lawyers, Benjamin Thomas and Joseph Whitehead, walked into the office of Asa Candler, the man who controlled Coca-Cola at the time. They wanted the exclusive rights to bottle Coca-Cola across the entire United States, and Candler sold it to them for $1. Literally one single dollar. Candler shook their hands and let it go, because he was completely convinced the future of the drink was at the soda fountain, poured fresh by hand at the counter. Bottling, in his mind, was messy, expensive, and dangerous. Let somebody else deal with the glass and the water and the trucks. That $1 handshake accidentally created the largest franchise system in the history of commerce. Without meaning to, Candler split the business perfectly in two. He gave away the expensive, heavy, physical part, the water and the glass, and he kept the cheap, invisible, priceless part, the syrup and the name. He handed a stranger the bill and kept the profit for himself, and he did not even realize what he had just built. Now, if you are still with me, you have seen exactly where every cent of that $2 goes. You have seen why outsourcing the physical water was the single smartest move this company ever made. But we still have not touched the thing that actually turns this into a $350 billion empire, and it has nothing to do with manufacturing anything at all. Remember the whole point here. This was never really a beverage company. And the ultimate trap they set for their own bottling partners is still coming. So let us talk about the hidden engine. Coca-Cola runs a gross profit margin of around 60%. That is a staggering, almost absurd number for something that begins its life as sugar and water. How is that even possible? Because they are not really selling syrup. They are selling something completely invisible. They are selling demand. Every single year, Coca-Cola pours billions of dollars into marketing. The polar bears at Christmas. The Share a Coke campaign with your own name printed on the label. Santa Claus in that one very specific shade of red, which they helped make famous. They are not spending that fortune to tell you a soda exists. You already know it exists. They are spending it to manufacture pure desire, so that when you are standing at that cooler, hot and thirsty, you do not reach for a cheaper generic cola. You reach for that red can without a single thought. They do not sell you water. They sell you the craving for it. And now watch the trap slam shut. The bottling partner has borrowed billions of dollars to build a specialized factory. A factory engineered specifically from the ground up to produce Coca-Cola products. That bottler cannot suddenly flip a switch and start making Pepsi. The equipment, the contracts, the entire operation is locked in for decades. So when Coca-Cola decides to raise the price of the syrup, the bottler has no real choice. Because their customers are walking in demanding Coke, specifically, not just any cola, and the bottler simply cannot afford to be the guy who does not have it. Sit with what that actually means. Coca-Cola does not own the trucks. They own the customer's mind. And they use that ownership as leverage to squeeze the margins of the very logistics giants doing all the hard work. The syrup is just the mechanism they use to collect the toll, over and over, forever. Of course, no machine runs perfectly forever without something eventually breaking. So what happens when it does? There are two very different kinds of risk in this system, and they land on two very different people. When the price of aluminum spikes, or the diesel supply chain snaps, or a plant floods in a storm, it is the bottler who takes the hit square in the chest. The bottler's already razor-thin margin simply evaporates overnight. Coca-Cola, sitting comfortably in Atlanta, barely feels a thing, because they never bought a gram of that aluminum in the first place. But do not mistake this for Coca-Cola being risk-free. They are not. They carry the one risk that actually threatens the entire empire. Taste. The slow, steady, global shift toward healthier options, toward less sugar, toward no sugar at all. And this is the line that matters most. You can outsource the work, but you cannot outsource the blame. If a truck shows up late and a store runs dry, that is the bottler's problem, a tiny rounding error. But if an entire generation quietly decides it is done with sugary carbonated drinks, the whole $350 billion empire wobbles, and it drags every single bottling plant down into the water with it. So let us finally total up the bill. Let us walk through the real profit and loss statement of one medium-sized bottling operation, line by line. These are rounded numbers, but they are close enough to how a real bottler's books actually look to show you the shape of the thing. Start with revenue for the year. $50 million in sales. Sounds fantastic, right? Now the deductions begin. First, they pay Coca-Cola for the concentrate. $10 million, gone, straight to Atlanta, and that money lands almost entirely inside the parent company's high-margin profit. Next, packaging. The plastic, the aluminum, the labels, $14 million, gone. Next, logistics. The trucks, the diesel, the whole delivery fleet. $10 million, gone. Then labor and running the plant itself, day and night. $13 million, gone. Add every one of those up, subtract it from that $50 million in revenue, and what is actually left for the bottler at the very bottom of the page? $3 million on $50 million of sales. That is a net margin of 6%. Razor thin. One bad season away from nothing at all. Now hold that 6% right next to the parent company's 60% and put it in real perspective. Coca-Cola's market value of roughly $350 billion is larger than the entire yearly economic output of a country like New Zealand. An entire nation. And that empire was built by letting other people do the exhausting physical labor for 6%, while Atlanta quietly keeps the 60%. Now watch how those two paths violently split apart the moment reality shifts. Run the optimistic version first. It is a blistering hot summer. The advertising is everywhere you look. Everybody is grabbing that cold 500 milliliter bottle at the gas station. The bottler earns their 6%. Coca-Cola earns their 60%. Everybody wins, technically. Now run the realistic version. A state passes a sugar tax. Global diesel prices jump 30% in a matter of months. They are underwater, gasping. And Coca-Cola? Their 60% margin does not have a single scratch on it, because they never paid for one drop of that diesel. The gap between surviving and drowning belongs entirely, 100%, to the franchise partner. So let me say it one final time, as plainly and clearly as I possibly can. Coca-Cola is not a beverage manufacturing company. It never was. So how do you, an ordinary person, actually get a real piece of this? You have three genuine options. Option 1 is the Warren Buffett move. You buy the stock, the ticker symbol KO, and you collect dividends from a monopoly syrup machine without ever once worrying about a broken truck or a spilled pallet or the price of diesel. Option 3, the quiet one almost nobody talks about. You play the real estate and retail game. You control the prime spots, the end-of-aisle cooler, the vending machine location, the checkout shelf, because that visibility, that presence, is the actual battlefield Coca-Cola bleeds money every single day to win. That is the entire machine, laid bare. A local partner does the heavy lifting for 6%. Atlanta sells the idea for 60%. And you, standing at the cooler, have been happily paying for the idea the whole time. If you want the real numbers behind the brands you use every single day, subscribe. Next time, why Costco loses money on every $1.50 hot dog. On purpose.